When Hillary Clinton was running for president, she proposed spending $60 billion of your taxpayer money on clean energy. What a piker. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, Joe Biden has released his plan to spend $2 trillion during his first of what I'm sure will be 2 terms of the Biden presidency on clean energy, with the goal of having 100% clean electricity by 2035. Now, that's not the only goal, and this affects everything from transportation to agriculture to the Department of Justice, where a new Office of Environmental and Climate Justice will be created. But Bill, one commenter and supporter of this plan says, sure, it's hard, although Biden's campaign would say it's very doable. Sure, it's hard, but going to the moon was hard, and we did that. Now, Bill, I know nobody cares more about that moon mission than you do, having authored and hosted that Apollo 11 What We Saw series. Can you see the big picture guy that Joe Biden has become?
Well, you said the first 2 terms of a Joe Biden presidency. Joe Biden's not going to last the first 2 weeks of a Joe Biden presidency, but we'll put that aside. The difference between going to the moon and having the kind of green energy foundation that they're talking about by 2030 or whatever, 2035.
2035, yes.
Yeah, is that going to the moon was difficult, but going to this green future is impossible. And it's not an engineering problem. It's not an engineering problem of impossible. When people said it was impossible to go to the moon, what they meant was, geez, there's no way that we could ever come up with the technology or the resources to do that. Well, it turns out you could. But that's not the case with renewable energy. Renewable energy, a fully green economy is impossible. When I say for the foreseeable future, I mean for the foreseeable future. Rocket technology went back to the 1920s, really became mature in the 1940s. And so once we had rocket technology, the idea of going to the moon became an engineering challenge, not a physics challenge. The thing that these people refuse to announce, not that they don't understand it, it's that they refuse to announce it, is that renewable energy will not scale to the energy needs of this country, and it will fall short by not 1 order of magnitude, but 2 or 3 orders of magnitude. In other words, a full-on $2 trillion, $20 trillion, $200 trillion, $2,000 trillion effort to create a green energy economy by 2035 will fail by 3 or 2 orders of magnitude.
Well, Bill, your buddies and neighbors at UC Berkeley would disagree with you. In fact, they report...
buddies and neighbors at UC Berkeley don't have the faintest idea of what the sun is or why it rises. So I'm not too concerned with what my buddies at UC Berkeley would have to say.
Well, their Goldman School of Public Policy released a report last month that said the U.S. can achieve 90% carbon-free electricity by 2035 with existing technology. This is not a moonshot, in other words.
There is one technology that could get us to a carbon-free energy structure by 2035, and there's only one, and that is nuclear power. Is that what they're talking about?
You know, it doesn't flesh it out in this particular story.
I'd be willing to bet that's not. I'd be willing to bet that's not what they're talking about. But nuclear power could absolutely get us there, yes. So when I say talk about green power sources, I'm talking about the power sources that are run by unicorn emissions. And I'm not talking about, there are any numbers of technologies that could enormously, dramatically improve our electrical demands here in this country that are in fact scalable, and it would in fact not only be possible but would be smart to do. I'm not going to get into the physics of it or the details other than just to cover the basic grounds of it. But a large number of small-scale thorium reactors which cannot melt down, not because they have a backup system and they've got pumps that work automatically, but they cannot melt down because the physics of the design says that it cannot melt down. It's not possible to make this thing melt down. If you were to have thousands of smaller scale thorium reactors scattered throughout communities, perfect safety. That would be a marvelous energy solution to everything, would protect our national energy grid. It would do any number of other things. But no one's talking about that. And what they talk about when they say renewable energy, that's the green future is renewable energy. They're talking about either wind or solar or some form of ethanol or biofuels, all of which together might be able to provide 5 or 6% of the total U.S. energy needs while they're operating. But the problem with wind power is that it's not always windy. This is coming to a big shock to the big brains at Berkeley. The problem with solar power is that even if you live in a world where the air is so clear of clouds that solar cells are actually viable, it occasionally gets dark at night. In fact, it frequently gets dark at night. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you have an electrical plant that is providing solar energy during the daytime, you need a means to store that energy at night. Batteries are no longer up. They simply don't have the capacity for it. And so what you have to have is you have to have a second plant online, a conventional plant, usually coal or oil driven, to pick up the slack when it's cloudy or when it's nighttime. And because these are smaller plants, they're less efficient. And because they're less efficient, they produce more waste. And so the whole thing is an absolute lie. And you don't have to take my word for this being a lie, because if you fly from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, as I do probably several times a day, you will see on the way out there three enormously bright spots on the desert between just on the Vegas side of Vegas heading to Los Angeles, or just outside of Vegas. 3 blindingly white spots as you fly from New York to Los Angeles, let's say. And these are 3 of the largest solar collectors in the country. They may be 3 of the largest in the world. They're sun farms, basically. And these were put in at enormous expense and with a great deal of hope that they provide cheap electrical power. Well, the 2 problems with these facilities now, aside from the fact that they are blinding for hundreds of miles around from the air, 2 problems with them is that number 1, they're breaking down, and number 2, when they don't break down, their electricity is something like 3 or 4 times more expensive than the electricity that's provided by the water falling through Hoover Dam, which is actually an extremely good way to generate electricity cleanly. So they're not going to do it. It's not possible to do it, and they know this. They know it, and so this is why they sell this story that if we don't pour trillions of dollars through cronyism, the way we saw with, what was it? I want to say Symetra, but that's not the name of it. Solyndra, that company that Obama put $500 million of taxpayer monies into just so they could go out of business. If you don't subsidize these things for your crony friends, they go out of business. And this is the absolute inevitable scientific truth. It'd be nice if they followed the science for a change, but they don't believe in doing that. Now, there are ways that you can conserve electricity. There are certainly ways that you can improve the electrical grid. And as a matter of fact, of all the countries in the world that have been talking about carbon emission reduction, the only country in the world that has actually met and exceeded its carbon emission reduction goals is the United States of America. And the reason that the United States of America has done that is not because we built windmills everywhere that fall apart and cost more carbon to produce than they do to actually save when they're running. The reason that we've been able to lower our carbon emissions so much more than the rest of the world is because of the genius of American petro-engineers and fracking, which is producing large amounts of natural hydrogen gas, which is probably the cleanest burning of the carbon fuels available to us. There's more energy available to America now under American soil than at any time in the history of the world, including when they sank their first oil wells in Pennsylvania, due to the ingenuity of petro-engineers. But fracking, of course, is one of the first things that Joe Biden will ban, because everybody knows that fracking is a clean and inexpensive form of generating electricity. And the reason that these guys are so hooked on this New Deal thing, this Green Deal thing is, they've sold it to the people of the world in America that if we don't do this, your children are going to burn before they drown. And therefore, we have to do something. And therefore, we're going to go to these technologies that will choke the economy and basically destroy capitalism so that everybody is dependent on the government. And that's what they want. Whether that country is a country of paupers and a country of people who are getting 4 or 5 hours of electricity a day here in the United States is irrelevant to them, so long as they maintain the political power to give themselves $300,000 a year retirement funds. I don't care if you think that sounds cynical. I've been looking at this for 20 years, and I am an extremely idealistic guy. There are no other possible explanations for it.
The members of BillWhittle.com have made this program possible. If you'd like to join them, you can go to BillWhittle.com and click the big green Become a Member button. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.